Dized content creation tool. Let's take a look at the flow editor. This is the first view where you arrive when you start creating new content with Dized. Let's take a look. Snap to grid function here. Recommended keep it always on. Zoom level available here. Globals is your variable editor. Asset Explorer is file manager. So this is where you upload all the files and manage them that you want to use with your content. SO Explorer stands for Smart Object Explorer, is where all the game components are set up as 3D elements and other UI elements are created as well that you want to use in the content and in your animations. And settings is pricing of the content, the description of the content, and those sort of things. Then here we have the version number of the different tools that are a part of this tool. So when, for example, if you report bugs, it's good to know which version of the tool that you were using. On the bottom right here, we have the previewer, which allows you to test the content within this tool. And this kind of simulates how it will look in the app when players use it. On the bottom here, we have buttons that allow you to do actions with the blocks in the flow. And then this middle area here is where your story flow will actually be. I'll scroll up a little bit to show some of the blocks or steps that I have already created. Now, block and step is the same exact thing. Our developers talk about blocks and these because these look like blocks in the story. But for players, these are steps that they see in the content, for example, in a tutorial. So for players, it's easier. Step makes more sense, but the block is also used. And you see two types of blocks here. They are white blocks that are content blocks. These are something that players see, allow you to do animations and provide information for players or ask questions. So these are the content blocks. And then there are logic blocks, which allow the content creator to do any sort of actions that are not seen by the player. So players will never see these blue blocks, but they allow some logical actions to happen. For example, here, a certain conditional logic happens, which defines that where will the story continue. By default, it's going to go up here, which is the brighter arrow. But then on a special condition, it can also flow to the other direction. This could also, for example, be if we have a certain amount of players, go here, otherwise go there, or something like that. Now we see a couple of icons on this content step here. The play icon means that this is a so-called autoplay step. Once all the information on the step, the animation and the voiceover has been fully presented, the story will go onwards automatically without players needing to click, interact with the app. And if there is no play button, it just means that once players arrive to this content block, they will stay there until they tap the app that they are ready to continue. So typically when they need to do something in the game before continuing. And then the other symbol is this person with the voice arrows, and this means that there is a voiceover file set to play when players arrive to this step. Adding new steps. These are done with the buttons on the bottom. So add content just adds a new content block. I'll click it and it added it here, which is actually next to the most previous block that I created. If I have a block selected and I create a new block, then it just creates it next to the one that I had selected. And it's the same for logic. So content blocks here, logic blocks you add here. And you can see that the number that's the default name for it is just the total amount of the steps now. So this was the 10th step in the whole tutorial that I created, and that's why it's automatically renamed it as step 10. Now selecting blocks. Just click the block to select it. You can select multiple blocks by holding down Shift, or you can draw a box around them to select multiple blocks at once, and then you can move them around and manipulate them. Now, organizing steps. So you are free to create your flowchart into a form, whatever works for you. And when you move these steps around, you see that all the other tool buttons become unavailable, except there's cancel and save positions. This means that when you move them around, This tool is not constantly updating the new locations to the cloud, because that would be just a lot of communication. First, you can move all the steps where you want them to be, and then you click Save Positions, and now there's one set of communication to the server to let know where the new positions, desired positions for the stuff is. If you move them around and click Cancel, they just jump back to where they were before you started moving them around. Once you have either canceled or saved the positions, the other functions become available again. And deleting steps. Select the step, click delete, and confirm, and that's how you delete them. You cannot delete a step that has incoming story flow. So first you need to remove that incoming story flow, and then the delete block function becomes available. Duplicating block means that if you have a block, and sometimes you might have, for example, a template of a certain game situation that you want to use when you start building new blocks out of it, you can, instead of adding new content with this button, you can select a block and click duplicate block. And this allows you to duplicate the block with all its objects and animations. And here, when you click duplicate object, it asks you, what do you want to do with the objects in the step. And if you want to keep all the animations, you select keep. If you want to remove the animations and just have those objects where they are in the beginning of this block, you select clear. If you want to do the same but keep the end positions of the objects in the source block, you select this last option here. So start positions, no animations, full animations, obviously from start to the end positions, or just bring the objects to the new block, but just with their where they are at the end of this source block. And the next option is just, do you want to keep the link, the default next block information, or do you want to clear it? So you select your desired options and you click yes, and then you have your duplicated block here. Now, syncing steps. There is a sync blocks function which requires more explanation, and we're not really going through it now. Basically what it allows you to do is, when you have one block and you want to sync information from this block to another block, so you select two of them, now it becomes available. But this is a more complex function, and we're not going to go into it right now. And that is the basic overview of the flow editor.